How you doing? How you guys doing?
Good, good.
Yeah, good.
Obviously, today is National Signing Day. Certainly excited about this class. Was able to add some guys that we feel like can be the foundation of our program for the long term. I think with this early signing day period, you're always looking for guys that fit your culture, what you're trying to build, how you're trying to build it. And we certainly found 18 guys at this point. We got a couple more guys we're working on, looking to sign. And obviously, now with recruiting, it's constant, right? You're recruiting high school student athletes, you're recruiting the junior college, you're recruiting the portal who does not have a signing day. So you're constantly working on your roster from the standpoint of giving your team the best chance to be as successful as possible next season. So a lot of things we're still working on as the staff. Still a lot of players we're still working on to add to our team. It will be constantly evolving and changing, and we're excited. But just to run down the list with our players, first guy, LaDon Bryant is a wide receiver. Had him in camp in the summertime. Big, tall, physical, athletic wide receiver, multiple sport player. That can do a variety of things, that can make contested catches, that can catch over the middle, that has the toughness and the physicality to be a tremendous blocker. And when you add him to our young wide receiver room, we feel like we have some guys that's really going to develop in the long term. George Demopoulos, a receiver in state from Crystal Lake, Illinois. Also another young man we had at camp, ran 4.5 at our camp, had a 36-inch vertical. Had a tremendous short shuttle, and went out there and played his best football as a senior. And so he's a guy that we feel like is a very similar mold of some guys we've had in the past. Cole Tucker comes to mind, but he may be a little faster, a little more explosive, and a guy that can make plays on the perimeter. First cornerback I'm going to talk about is Deshaun Gibson, young man from Manassas, Virginia. He's a prep school kid that we had the ability to see at camp. He's going to be a mid-year player, so he will be here in January. And so, if you look at our defense, we have long, athletic corners. We want to continue to add those type of players that make it very difficult, for passing teams to complete passes. And that's why we one of the top passing defenses in the country. We got long guys that can play the ball, that has great ball skills, and Deshaun certainly has that. AJ Guda is a linebacker from Colorado. The linebacker position is something we really want to address with some young players. We'll add some mid-year linebackers as we go, but really wanted to build a foundation of the linebacker room. And AJ was a guy that we had information about. My director of player personnel is out from Colorado, so knows the football from out there. We had some great insight on him, but certainly a big linebacker, 6'2". He's about 210, 215, a guy that can put on 10, 15 pounds as he develops, but has that tenacity that we look for as far as downhill and knocking people back in the run game. Ben Gustafson, an offensive lineman from Elkhorn, Nebraska, is a young man. One thing about us, we make all of our offensive and defensive linemen come to camp and have a chance to work with those guys. Obviously, it takes a certain level of physicality to play on offensive line. And Ben is a guy that we felt like was a guy that can develop. Had him in camp. There's some things he needs to work on, but when you watch him his senior year, he really took to heart the things that we talked about in the summer for him to work on to get better. Next guy, Lance Ingold, is a defensive end. He's about 6'7", 230 pounds. He's really a guy I'm surprised a lot of people, didn't jump on in the recruiting process. He's down in the middle of the state, so not many people go down there to watch him. But, you're talking about an athletic freak, baseball player, was a pitcher, obviously is the cleanup hitter on their baseball team. But he was a guy that a year ago, he was 195 pounds, and now he's 230 pounds, and a guy that we feel like can be one of those guys that can contribute early as a true freshman based on the things that we've seen. Kenny Luth, a quarterback, junior college player from California, a guy that we have a lot of information about. He went to the same school as Grayson Barnes. And so, when Grayson told us about him, we did our research. Obviously, we have a great rapport with the coaches out there. But he's a guy, I think he finished the year with a 30-to-1 ratio, touchdowns to interception, and the guy that can distribute the ball, a great passer, great anticipation, a strong enough arm to make all the throws, a good enough athlete to run and scramble. But he's a guy that will be in the program in January, and give himself a chance to go compete with the guys in our program to see who's going to come out and be the starting quarterback. But Kenny was a guy we had it rated extremely high, and one thing we do is rate each player against the portal. And so he was a guy that constantly rated near the top of our list of guys at the quarterback position, and we couldn't be more excited to have him. KJ McCray, a young man, tremendous athlete. We had an opportunity. I saw him at the Kennesaw camp in Georgia last summer. He was a running back at the camp, but a guy that I said, you know what, with his size and his athleticism, he can certainly make the transition to be a linebacker. He's about 6'3", 210. You see on his tape, he plays running back, he plays tight end, he plays wide receiver, he plays linebacker, he plays defensive end. But we wanted to get bigger at the linebacker position for the long term of our program. I feel like that's the one area that we need to continue to get more size. We have great size at the defensive line, but we need linebackers that's going to come downhill and knock back tackle. And KJ is certainly a guy we feel like can do that. Next guy, Ivan Moore, a defensive end from Chicago, Illinois, a guy that we've been on for a long time. Wasn't sure if we would have the chance to get him, but we stayed consistent. Coach Moore did a great job staying on him throughout the whole year. Thought he played his best football as a senior, but he could be a guy that could be a game-changing type defensive end in our program, a guy that can rush the passer as well as play first and second down in our defense. Aiden Olson, offensive lineman. The one thing about Aiden Olson is you look at his size, he's about 6'3", 6'4", 285, but he has an 80-inch wingspan. So you say an offensive center can have an 80-inch wingspan and move the way that he moves and plays with the level of physicality that he plays with, we feel like he can really develop in our program. He's also a young man that will be here mid-year in January. The last mid-year center we had wound up playing extremely well for us, and we feel like he could be the next guy in that role of a young offensive lineman that grows at the center position. Taylor Powell, another guy from Illinois, from East St. Louis, a safety. When I first saw Taylor at camp, I said there was no way that we had a chance to hold on to this guy. I think what's happening now is in the recruitment process, people are not doing their homework and they make mistakes and then think, okay, we can go correct mistakes in the portal. So, but Taylor's a young man that if you did your homework and did the research, he's a 6'3", 195-pound safety that has great range, has great ball skills, can cover the field and really be dynamic on the back end of our defense. Davion Reynolds, another corner from Zion, Illinois, Carmel Catholic, a guy that, we had at camp. He ran 4.48 at camp. He's a 10'9", 100-meter guy with great length, athleticism, the ability to change direction and make plays on the ball. Again, the cornerback position is something that's really, really important for us and for us to play good defense. And so for us to get where we need to be, we have to continue to be able to lock down people on the perimeter of our defense so our defensive line and our linebackers can play downhill. Gray Rumor, offensive lineman from Wisconsin. We've done a great job. Coach Akposa has done a great job in Wisconsin recruiting offensive linemen. And Gray will be the next guy in line. 4.0 student, wants to be an engineering major, but a guy that was the defensive player of the year in Wisconsin on defense. But we took him as an offensive lineman, a two-way player that we feel like is a tremendous athlete, very smart, very intelligent. and very physical at the point of attack, and he'll play guard for us inside. Amir Smith, the running back from South Carolina, had a chance to get on him early, was fighting some teams away from him late. But, he's a guy that's very dynamic, a 10-900-meter running back, very physical, very explosive with the ball in his hand, has the ability to make one cuts and get vertical. And, we excited to get him in the summertime. Joe Stein, a tight end, 6'4", 6'5", 225 from Nebraska, a wrestler, dual sport athlete, runs track in the springtime, but certainly a guy that we feel like can develop. The tight end position is a developmental position, and we use a bunch of tight ends in the game, and we feel like he will develop, has the ability to run block and pass receiver at the tight end position. And the last one at this point is Adrian Thomas, a safety from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, a guy that we've been on for a couple of years. His coach, Randy Drew, played here, gave us a lot of information about him early. We felt good about him and feel good about his development. But you see across the board, we have length, we have athleticism, we have guys that will develop, and guys that we want to hold on to as they get better in our program. So that's our class for now. We probably have a couple more guys today, and then a couple more guys over the next couple coming weeks as we continue to build our team for 2024.
Sorry if I missed you mention him, Coach, but one of the things that stood out to me was the size, and Lane Mainsmith, too, at 6'8", 320. And I know there's a bunch of other big linemen in there, too. Just how big was that of a focal point, obviously, for you guys?
Yeah, no, Lane, I'm sorry I didn't mention him. Lane is certainly another ginormous young man. He's about 6'7", 6'8", about 325. Really slimmed down. He's playing basketball right now. But a guy that, for us, feels like we can have two bookend tackles in this class with Lane and Ben. We feel like, we've addressed the tackle position in the last two recruiting classes. Obviously, we lose Potter this year. We lose Bush next year. But really wanted to make sure we can establish, our tackles moving forward. Evan Malco did a phenomenal job this year, so that gives us a chance to buy time with some young players. Evan Buss is back next year. We got Michael Jamar in our program. We got Tommy Ponch in our program. And then adding Lane and Ben gives us the ability to have 5 or 6 tackles for the long term. And our program is built inside out. We believe in the foundation being on the offensive and defensive line. And we certainly address those areas this season.
Quarterback, I mean, I think even without Rocky and not counting Lynch, there's still 5 quarterbacks on the roster, and I think you brought 2 in. Just how are you seeing that shape up, and what do you how see these new pieces going into what seems like an already pretty crowded room?
Yeah, no, certainly want to make sure I announce Luke Marble as well, quarterback from Georgia. Feel good about him. Had him in camp. He's a dual threat athlete, about 6'3", 190. A guy that can throw it and run it and pass it. The quarterback position, is like any other position, right? You want to have enough competition in the room, and the best guy will play. And so that's something that we want to address, something that we want to get better at. We want to improve that position, as we continue to move forward. And that's something that's a part of it, right? Some guys develop the way you think, some guys don't. That's recruiting. Recruiting is not an exact science, and you don't hit on every player that you sign. But, what you don't want to happen is not have enough competition in the room, because what if the first guys go down? Who's the backup? Who's the third string guy? So we want to have enough depth and talent, because I believe in 2022, we were down to the 4th or 5th quarterback during that season, if I'm not mistaken. So we want to make sure that whole room is solidified, because obviously your team goes as the quarterback position goes, and that's something that we need to continue to address.
Obviously, like you were mentioning, things don't always go your way. It's recruiting certainly and always a very fluid thing. But how did having the ending that you guys did in the regular season, finishing with those 2 wins to close out the year, to get to 6-6, to be where you are now heading into this bowl game, how much does a finish like that help you when you're pitched as you're getting down to these final weeks and you end up on signing day here?
Well, it's really helped us in terms of recruiting the portal young men. You know, we were able to bring a lot of guys to practice. They saw how we practice, the level of physicality that we practice, the level of excitement that our kids play with, and there were a bunch of guys that wanted to become a part of that. And so, you know, with the transfers, we can announce those guys the first day of school. We will announce a group at that time of guys that'll be here mid-year. The one thing about our roster that I love is we have a lot of guys that's graduating mid-year, which gives us an opportunity to add mid-year guys in our program. And so as far as the high school kids, we've been on these kids for, you know, 7, 8, 9 months, and they know what we're about, but to have an opportunity to make an impression on guys that you may have gotten on later in the process, as we know, the portal didn't open up until December 4th, but to have an opportunity to continue to practice and to continue to work, and for those young men to see our culture firsthand was very beneficial as we continue to add to our team.
Then heading into 2024, obviously your Rocky's gone next year as he's finally exhausted his eligibility, and obviously with all the changes coming in college football nationwide, obviously nothing too crazy changing in the MAC aside from the divisions being changed. Do you feel like this one's an important one in that regard, and just knowing that there's just going to be so much going on not only in the program but in the MAC and nationwide that you want to really make sure you get this class right?
Yeah, you know, this class is really important because we got 25 seniors next year. So, you know, it was important for us to add a bunch of high school guys, talent-wise, guys that you can have in a program and get developed. You know, some people develop faster than others, but normally it takes at least a good year to get in a college routine, a college system, and understand, you know, what it takes to play at that level. You know, we had a couple redshirt freshman corner that played extremely well this year in Amarion Knighton and Jacob Finley, but it took them a year in the program. So hopefully we feel like, you know, signing a class of 20, 21 guys allows us a year, buys us a year with a big senior class. You know, one other thing that we did that's kind of creative is, you know, we're going to add some more guys that we, you know, promised scholarships to get them in the program earlier from the standpoint of, you know, we'll rather have more guys in our program in June developing, and then when you have 25 seniors leave your program in the fall, you already got an extra 4 to 5 guys already in the program that you feel like are scholarship type players, and we'll announce those guys at a later date as well.
And perhaps a name that you haven't said that might be your biggest win thus far is getting Trayvon Rudolph back. I know he spent a couple weeks in the portal. You spoke about him on Twitter a little bit, and it seems like it's a huge momentum swing to get one of your top players back. What does it mean for you to have him back in the program here?
Yeah, you know, we kept open lines of communication with Trayvon Rudolph. He continues to practice. The expectation was always for him to play in a bowl game. So that, you know, it wasn't much change. The players saw him every day. And so to have him come back gives you a foundational piece at the wide receiver position. We are going to add, you know, some more wide receivers. You know, we feel like we have some great young players that are developing, that may develop at different points. But to add some veteran presence in that room and show, you know, what it takes, the work ethic, the consistency on a day in and day out basis, that's what we're looking to add mid-year. So I'm really pleased with the young wide receivers. I think obviously, you know, some guys played before they were ready to play, but they are developing and getting better. And I figure another offseason, another spring ball, another summer, those guys will make tremendous strides at the position.
That was what I needed.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think I'm good to go.
All right. Well, thanks you guys for hopping on. We appreciate it, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Best
Yeah,
of luck
thanks,
this weekend.
Coach.